Stencil street art is a form of graffiti that uses stencils made out of paper, cardboard, or other media to create an image or text that is easily reproduced. Today I'm going to introduce you to some incredible contemporary street artists that use stencils as a major component of their artistic practice, and then demonstrate how you can create a basic 3-layer stencil yourself. Let's get started. Banksy is a British street artist that has developed a huge subculture devoted to his work. His artwork includes many powerful, often controversial images. Banksy has kept his identity unknown for over 20 years and has been active in the graffiti scene for over 20 years. Best known for his use of stencils and ability to spread messages across art, philosophy, and politics. Dolk, meaning dagger in Norwegian, is the pseudonym of Norway's most recognized stencil artist. His motives are often pop cultural references put into a humoristic or critical context. Dolk's work can be seen on walls in cities such as Bergen, Berlin, Copenhagen, Barcelona, Oslo, Lisbon, Stockholm, London, Prague, and Melbourne. Lady Aiko, born as Aiko Nakagawa, is a Japanese-born street artist who's been living in the USA since the 90s. She's a female in a world dominated by omnipresent male figures like Banksy or Shepard Fairey, but that doesn't discourage her in any way. Driven out of the studio by the combination of freedom offered by the streets and the thrill that comes with the uncertainty and uncontrollability of the process itself, she's been recognized as one of the most influential and popular street artists in the world. Shepard Fairey is an American contemporary street artist, graphic designer, activist, illustrator, and founder of Obey Clothing, who emerged from the skateboarding scene. He became widely known during the 2008 U.S. presidential election for his Barack Obama Hope poster. The Institute of Contemporary Art, Boston, has described him as one of the best known and most influential street artists. Jeremy Novy's unique brand of street art is ripe with thoughtful social examinations. Novy has combated a homophobic lack of representation with the celebration of gay iconography, bringing joviality and warmth to disused urban spaces. Since graduating from Peck's School of the Arts, Novy's art has been featured in numerous films, books, publications, and collections. His stencil work is cogent in its messaging and remarkably complex for its compositional simplicity.
To stumble upon a koi fish or something that is faux nature in a very urban landscape, I find whimsical and funny, but also a very positive image for people to see. My name is Jeremy Novy, and I'm a stencil street artist. I travel around stenciling art on predominantly the koi fish, which I find is a very positive and pleasant image for people to stumble upon. I don't always do my art with permission, and so I kind of like it if I go into a restaurant, they don't know who I am. And that way, by removing the image of me, it forces you to look at my art. But yeah, I just bring it down sometimes. I'm like, I'm the fish guy, and instantly, I have some cred or like some like you are a legit artist once I say I do the koi. I have a heart for San Francisco for sure. So whenever I'm putting them out there, I'm keeping with, my kind of San Francisco street art roots. There has to be like 40,000 of them. Like there is like a lot of them. There's some in people's houses. Like people have sent me pictures of them getting them tattooed on them. People's different wedding pictures with all these different scenic views, and like the fish, as if that's somehow an iconic part of their relationship in the city of San Francisco, which is just beautiful. And it's one of the reasons why I keep doing it is like, when people stop and tell them how it makes them happy, or their kids like kind of like to play around them or see them, just makes me want to put them out there. Art is an important thing of the world, and it needs to be out there, and so I'll just do it without permission, and hopefully a way that I'll get forgiveness, or it'll somehow brighten someone's day before it gets removed.
Your first step is to draw the outline of your koi fish on a piece of cardboard or even a piece of paper if that's all you have. Actually, the back of a cereal box on that soft cardboard is a really good option too. Remember, you don't want to do any of the details, you're just making the outline of the perimeter of the fish. Next, you're going to cut out that koi fish outline. If you're using a soft cardboard like a cereal box or construction paper, you can just use scissors to cut this out. If you're using a thicker cardboard, you may need to use an X-Acto knife or even a box cutter. Make sure you put a cutting mat underneath. You have adult supervision, and you want to make sure you never have your fingers in the cutting path. You got to be very careful if you're using an X-Acto knife. Alright, now if you look at the koi fish at the top of the screen, this is actually a koi done by Jeremy Novy. I bought it online off of his website. Now, if you look at a stencil, the number of colors that are in the stencil is generally the number of layers that you're going to need to do. So, for this layer, the fish that we just cut out, I'm only going to focus on the black shapes and lines. So I'm going to draw on those bold outlines and those organic shapes, just looking at the black. And I'm going to wait and hold off on the orange shapes for my next layer. Alright, now my fourth step, again, either using an X-Acto knife very carefully or a pair of scissors, depending upon the materials that you chose. You're going to cut out those shapes and lines. It's really important that you made the lines thick enough that they can actually be cut out. So, for example, you don't want to just do a really tiny skinny line because you're not going to really be able to cut it out and get any paint to get through when we're using the stencil brush or the spray paint later in the project. So make sure you have thick, bold lines to cut out. Alright, now once you have finished cutting out all those lines and shapes, this is actually going to be your second layer. This is going to be where you are painting in all the black. That top fish, the one that's just the outline, it's almost the negative space that's left behind. That's actually going to be your first layer of the stencil. Now we actually need a third layer for that orange, so I've outlined that fish a final time, and I'm going to cut it out using my X-Acto knife or scissors really carefully. Alright, now look at these orange spots. On this final and third layer, we're going to draw out some more organic shapes. That's going to be our third color. Whether it's orange or maybe you want to pick a different pop of color for your koi fish, that will be up to you. But once you have your shapes drawn in, you're going to carefully cut them out. And there you have it. We've got our 3 layers to our stencils. The top is going to be our white, The middle is going to be our black color, and the bottom is going to be our orange color. All right, let's start making some art. Okay, the next step is you're going to pick what kind of surface do you want to put your stencil on. In my case, I'm just using this blue piece of construction paper. So I lay down my first layer of the stencil, which is just the big outline, and I'm going to use my white paint. I'm using this foam brush, but you could use a stencil brush or just a regular paintbrush if that's what you have. Or you could even do this using markers, crayons, colored pencils. Use the materials that you have available. But what's important is you hold the stencil very still with your non-dominant hand and fill in all the spaces carefully. All right, now it's really important to give that first layer a chance to dry. You can kind of wave it up and down or fan it with another piece of paper to hurry it up. And once it's dry, you'll be ready to go on to the second layer. So you are going to first put out some black paint for the second layer. I'm just using an old piece of magazine paper for a palette. It works really well, and you can just throw it away when you're done. I'm going to line up this second layer so that it lines up perfectly on top of that outline that I just made. And then I'm going to use another foam brush and dab. I like to dab straight down, kind of an up and down motion, and trying to fill in all those holes and bold lines that I cut out. Again, being very mindful and careful to hold the stencil completely still with your non-dominant hand. Okay, it's very key. If you slide that stencil around, it's going to mess up your print. So make sure that you hold the stencil very still. Okay, let's give it that black second layer of paint a little bit of chance to dry. You don't want to start the third layer if there's still wet paint on your surface, so make sure that you don't try to rush through this process. Now, once it is completely dry, you're going to give a little bit of orange paint onto your palette, and again, line up this third and final layer of your koi fish stencil, and you're going to hold it still with your non-dominant hand, get some of that orange paint, and again, an up and down motion, kind of dabbing that orange paint onto
all those shapes that you cut out from the third layer of the stencil. You can give it a couple coats, make sure that you're holding it still and covering all the spaces. And there you have it. A 3-layer stencil inspired by Jeremy Novy's koi fish. Hang on to the 3 layers that you made because you can try this stencil on different surfaces and using different colors.